Good morning and welcome back to the channel. I'm at Lord Hill Regional Park, which is just outside of Snohomish, Washington. And I decided to come here because I just wanted something close and didn't want to be out here for too long and be on the road for too long. So ran out here for the morning and was expecting some sunshine. Woke up and there was actually raining, and wouldn't you know it, because hey, it is Washington. But so drove out to Lord Hill it's really kind of dim and dark, so I'm not too sure what I'm gonna find while I'm here. I did find this wonderful old gnarly big leaf maple and composed an image that brought in these the roots, and they look a little bit longer in the lens because I'm using the wider angle on my normal lens, which is the 18 to 55. But bringing this up and just pretty much cutting it off at these gnarl lumps up here. And it should be it's just, it's a kind of a cool specimen just to photograph, even if it's not a great image. I've got an f8 because I do want to get from the roots to the trunk. Had to pull back real quick because we had some joggers go by, and that's one of the things about this park. It's a very popular park, so you have people walking on the trails, you have people jogging on the trails, bicyclists, and even horseback riders. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I had the roots in focus and all the way up to that gnarly bit up there. So that's why I used an f8. And yeah, I don't know what I'm going to see here today. It is really kind of drab and dreary. I did end up using my polarizer on this because I was just getting enough sheen on those ferns in the background that I didn't want that distracting from the gnarly trunk of the tree. So with that, let's go walk around a little bit more and see what we can find. Behind me is a mess of a forest. It's filled with alder, big leaf maple, tons and tons of little bushes that were probably salmon berries during the season. And yeah, they would still be salmon berries, but they're just sticks right now. But just trying to find something that catches my eye and something that I want to tell a story about. And one of the things when you're walking through a forest or walking anywhere, when you're picking out your subject, it's something that's going to catch your eye. But then you have to start asking yourself questions. And the main question is why? Why? What attracted me? Why am I attracted to a certain subject? What is it about this shape, this color, this little scene that makes me want to photograph it and share it? Why is this attractive to me? Why do I want to talk about it? Why do I want to photograph it? Why do I want to share it? And the answer to those questions will help you compose the rest of your scene. It'll let you know what elements to include and especially what elements to exclude. You don't want something in there vying for the attention of your subject. Your subject could be just some little leaves hanging off a limb, but if you have a lot of other leaves coming in there, maybe people won't be able to see that. So you need to compose in a way that will help tell the story of those leaves. Maybe there's some really great light on those leaves and the rest of the leaves are in darkness. Maybe you can focus in on those leaves and have a really wide aperture, which will put the other leaves out of focus. And once you start asking the whys, then you start asking, well, how do I make my camera help me tell that story? Remember, your camera is only a tool. How you manipulate your camera, the settings you use in the camera, the lens, the settings, the aperture, ISO, shutter speed, all help tell the story of that subject that you want to photograph and want to relate to somebody else. So right now I'm just kind of going through and looking. There's some really cool things, and I have to stop every now and then and really look at it and see if there's a way I can compose the image without too much distraction. And in a forest this messy, that gets really hard. So I'm gonna keep trying to see if we can find something. We might not find something here, we might find something elsewhere. But I wanted to just stop and tell you a little bit about that process and how to ask yourself why. Okay, so let's put this little lesson into practice here. I was walking along and saw this wonderful big leaf maple and this little branch from a vine maple. Oh, I just got stickered by a little sticker bush. But I saw this little branch from the vine maple coming across. What I liked about it, first what attracted me to was that wonderful little swoop of the branch. Then I looked just a little bit longer, just a couple of seconds longer, and what I really made me stop and look at it really was the fact that the big leaf maple has that wonderful cracked and gnarly bark with all the moss that's in it, and it just really is rough. And I love looking at things that are almost opposites. That really kind of stung. And the vine maple is a really smooth, just coming across it. It's almost like age and youth, even though they're different types of trees. Age is the cracked and gnarly trunk of the big leaf maple, and the vine leaf maple almost represents youth. So what I've done, I'm on really unsteady ground here, and I'm still gonna I'm gonna open this up. I'm gonna make this a little bit wider because I'm on unsteady ground. I am not able to get my camera exactly level. So I am going to have to fix that in Photoshop, I think. But this is really super unsteady ground, and I feel kind of precarious on the shakiness of it. Plus, I had to extend my center column. Why did I have to extend my center column? Well, if I was down here, I'd be looking up at that branch even more, which actually causes the trunk to have that keystone effect. I didn't want that keystone effect. I want it as straight as possible, which I'm going to have to fix that in Photoshop anyways. But I've got the branch near the top because I want everything, if you look at the moss, it's all kind of pointing upwards. So I want it all leading up to that branch. I've got it on a 10-second timer just because I'm so unsteady here. And it's at a 7.1 aperture. I don't need it super wide open. I also don't need it super wide closed because there's not much depth of focus here. Depth of field. There's just really not that much. So I really don't need to ask the camera to have a small aperture to create a lot of depth of field. So let's go ahead and grab this. Again, if you notice, even just pushing on my camera, it wobbled. And it's got a 10-second timer on it so it can really steady. And there it goes. And now the sky is blown out, but of course I'm going to be cropping in Photoshop so I can get the bark straight. The tree actually isn't straight. I think my camera is not too awfully far off of being level, but it's just not where I want it to be within the scene. but I chose this subject because I like the contrast between the aged looking bark of the trunk and the young looking bark of the branch. I chose a wide open aperture because I didn't need a lot of depth of field in it. And that helped me kind of speed up my aperture or my shutter speed, because my my tripod's really wobbly right at the moment. And I didn't want to have to worry about the camera shaking because of the wobbliness of the tripod. So you can even have mundane reasons like that as to why you choose different apertures and why you choose different settings. So hopefully that will help you out, and we'll keep looking for a few more and talk you through why. You may not be able to see them, but there are some really great little mushrooms here. And what I have found, I'm going to need to get off the log actually, because the log is part of the scene. But what I've seen are these little mushrooms coming up here in the front, and they're just curving around the log. I like that curve. That's why I want to photograph them. I love how life is still moving forward even in the face of impediments. I have a composition. This log is going at an angle from the bottom right to the top left. I have these little mushrooms that are curving up in the bottom of the bottom left of the image. I have really, I'm at f13 primarily because, and I want to adjust one little thing here, there we go, primarily because I want a lot of this in focus. I don't want a lot of this out of focus. I may play around with the focus a little bit, or the aperture, because it may turn out that I want more of this log out of focus, but at the moment I don't. I want to be able to see not only these mushrooms in focus, but these mushrooms defined. Even though they may not be in total focus, I want you to be able to know that those are mushrooms and not leaves. I want both these mushrooms and those mushrooms identifiable in my scene, because they all help tell the story. Everything else I've excluded. Nothing else in here really tells the scene. This fern doesn't tell the scene. In fact, if I tried to widen my view, because I'm almost at 55 on my lens here, if I widened that, I would actually lose these mushrooms, the reason why I want to photograph them. So I want to make sure I'm zoomed in on exactly what I want to photograph in the story I'm trying to tell here. And go ahead and grab this image. If I wanted to photograph, there's another little moss here with the mushroom with the back of the moss, which I may actually photograph. That will be also tight in on the mushroom, but I'll be moving the camera so that I'm including that. If I photographed it from here, all I see behind it is a bunch of leaves jumbled up, and it would be distracting from that mushroom. And yeah, I think this is going to be kind of a cool little thing. I love being able to photograph mushrooms. If I was smart, I would have brought my smaller tripod. I should have known I'd be down on the ground photographing them, but that's okay, because this is one of those tripods you can spread the legs out a little bit better, and this is going to be a really cool scene. So remember that, look for what you're looking, see if you find something that is attractive to your eye. Find out why. Start asking those questions, and then you'll be able to compose the image. And I'm going to actually switch around and photograph this other little mushroom, and then we'll continue on to the little lake. I wanted to give you a comparison between this little mushroom from where I was sitting previously and before moving around to get the mushroom with the moss behind it. As you see in this first image, we have a lot of leaves behind the mushroom and it kind of gets lost. And if I want to talk about this little mushroom and really make sure that it stood out, I would want to get rid of all that stuff in the back, all those leaves. So I went ahead and moved my camera around to get the image where I really can show this mushroom in all of its wonderful mushroominess. And that was to simplify the background, let the background kind of fall out of focus and making sure it wasn't really too busy. That trunk with the moss on it really helped to bring out the mushroominess of this little mushroom. I was walking out on the main pipeline trail, and to my right there was just this really nice thick forest. And first trail I came to that came into this forest, I grabbed. I wanted to head back towards the car anyways, and that was the way that was going to take me. But there was another trail that went off to the other side, and it wasn't this type of a forest. This type of a forest, if you look around, this is the type of forest you would see Hansel and Gretel running from the Wicked Witch, wouldn't you? You'd almost expect to see around the next turn a cottage made of candy and gingerbread. So how do you capture that? How do you capture that idea of being in a fairy tale and expecting to see the witch who's going to boil children and see Hansel and Gretel running from her? How do you capture that? That's really, there's a lot of different ways. And the way I've done it so far, and I might find another photo down the way, but I found 3 trees, they're off to your left, found 3 trees that kind of go back. They have all that great moss dripping off them, and they look stark. And it is kind of dark and dreary in the forest right at the moment anyways. And then just have the ferns, the huge sword ferns at the base of it. There is just enough light to cause glare, so I needed to put on my polarizing filter to cut a lot of that glare. I didn't want that glare because when I'm getting this into Photoshop, I'm going to want to help serve its darkness, and glare on the ferns is not going to help build that darkness. So it's F8 because I'm pretty far away from the scene and it's not that deep of a scene. Everything beyond those 3 trees, I don't care about. I'm going to make them darker anyways. I've got some stuff in the front. I'm not too sure what I'm going to do with it, but that's part of the forest, isn't it? So I might take it out, I might leave it in. Depends on how distracting it is. But yeah, it's just kind of like, this is that fairy Hansel and Gretel fairy tale forest. And you do find, these are all, these would be Douglas firs. And Douglas fir end up, their lower branches end up just dropping off. It's the top branches that are getting the light and the nutrients down into the roots. So these branches, they're not going to get light, so they're just going to fall off. They rot and fall off. But it's moist enough that you've got moss just dripping off of them. This would be a really cool forest when it's wet and see all that glistening wetness. It'd be kind of a difficult forest to photograph with bright sunlight because there's going to be a lot of harsh shadows, but this is going to be cool. I'm going to try and look for some other images in the forest. Don't know if I'll talk you through them, but just to let you know that if I see Hansel and Gretel, I'll make sure I get them to safety. Well, while I was out there, I realized this video is probably getting a little long in the tooth. So decided to call it a day. We had a lot of fun out here. This is definitely going to be a winter destination for me. After last year's backpacks, I really need to make sure I get into condition before I hit this year's backpacks. But anyways, Lord Hill is between Snohomish and Monroe. It is a regional park, it's a county park, and it's free to park here. There are two parking areas. There's the one closer to Snohomish, which is well signed, and there is one that's closer to Monroe, which is out at the end of Tester Road. Now, I've seen that one is a seasonal parking lot, but I don't know what the seasons are. Anyways, it's a great little park, lots of trails. There's miles of interconnecting trails that you can get not lost, but you know, you can lose yourself hiking along. And like I said, I'm definitely coming back this winter to make sure I get myself into shape for my exciting backpacks this year. So, yeah. So with that, well, I hope you learned something today that, you know, as you hike through the forest and you see something you really like, that you stop and start asking questions of why, which will help you understand how you want to compose the image and, you know, what settings you're going to need, what lens you're going to need, so that you can help tell that story, relate that story of that subject to your viewers. And with that, if you like the content of this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Also subscribe if you feel the need to. And wow, until next time, bye.